Now, motorists in Johannesburg could now be stopped at a roadblock for their unpaid rates and taxes, and this includes water, lights, as well as their property taxes. Law expert William Booth has labelled this new debt collection strategy by the City of Johannesburg as illegal. Now, the crackdown on defaulting ratepayers began last week, and residents with overdue municipal bills were made to pay or make arrangements to settle the outstanding amounts. For more on this story, we're joined by Tebogo Moraka, the City CFO. A very good morning to you, Tebogo. Thank you so much for your time today. Explain to us exactly what the process and the procedure is, and whether this act is actually legal, because according to legal experts, William Booth, whom we spoke to yesterday, it's not legal at all.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers as well. Thanks for having us. I think let's start with the process and the procedures that were followed on Saturday during the pilot phase of our drive for our finance officials to be joining JMPD. Firstly, the Joburg Ombudsman was on site and Group Legal was also on site. Why those two particular departments were on site was to ensure that we follow the law to the T. So if you were there on Saturday, you would have seen that JMPD only did their work in terms of licensing and the ARTO Act, in terms of licensing and outstanding fines and checking whatever they have to check in terms of motorists. They did not perform any credit management processes. What happened is whenever motorists passed, and they had the option not to listen to us, because I think from last week and the weeks before, there was a lot of media coverage on our initiatives, and some residents chose not to speak to us. We did not force them to speak to any of our finance officials. So that's the first part. Second part, out of the 750 cars that passed through that roadblock, 125 motorists actually chose to engage us. Well, we engaged a significant part of those 750 motorists. Number one, to hand out pamphlets, to engage them on platforms such as eJoburg, and engage them on other processes within the city to try and make their life easier. That's number one. Number two is, out of the 750 cars that passed through that pilot roadblock, 125 people either updated their contact details, because they said their contact details that we have on our database were old and things have changed. They updated their database. They followed up on some of the queries that they have in the past, and also some of them entered into acknowledgement of debts. No one was forced out of the car to enter into an acknowledgement of debt. It was offered to say, are you aware? Are you owing? Do you know about the acknowledgement of debt before we come and process other credit management?
So are you saying, Tebogo, that this is a completely voluntary process? That if somebody who's driving their car and a resident says, I don't want to engage with you, City of Joburg, that they will face no repercussions, there will be no threat of arrest, there will be no threat or being forced to sign an acknowledgement of debt, there will be no force for them to actually pay whatever is outstanding? Is that what you're saying?
No, 100%. At the spot, we cannot force our residents to do that at any roadblock. But we encourage them to engage with us, because in some instances, before we come in and do cut-offs if you owe us, or send out pre-termination letters, you might not be in a position to come to our offices during the week because you're at work, or you might not know about the Zenzele eJoburg platform. And we were there to engage with residents. If you didn't have those kind of opportunities where you have an outstanding debt, you either have a query or you didn't even know that you can enter into an acknowledgement of debt. That's why I'm saying there were people who took the opportunity to enter into those acknowledgement of debt, but we did not stop or arrest anyone who did not engage us. So that part I just want to emphasize.
I'd like us to go back to the point about whether or not this is legal, because my understanding is that in order for there to be a roadblock, the JMPD has to make an application, and they're then given the permission to execute that roadblock, either to, to check for roadworthiness, to check for outstanding traffic fines, etc. How does then the city of Joburg latch onto the licensing or the permission that JMPD has? Are you actually allowed to do that? Because then you don't have licensing to do so, but the JMPD has permission to be there.
JMPD has the permission they would get the permission to set up the roadblock. And it's a JMPD roadblock. I want to emphasize again, it's a JMPD roadblock. Group financial officials were there to hand out information and engage. If you didn't want to do that, we did not force you. So we didn't break any law in any way. And that's why I'm saying the Joburg Ombudsman was there. Our legal department was there to ensure that there is a clear separation of what we're trying to do. So if a resident, after speaking to JMPD, didn't want to speak to a group finance official, they drove off, just like any normal roadblock. We didn't add any pressure to it. But if they wanted to take a pamphlet, for example, they took the pamphlets. And if they had any other issues, 125 out of 750 vehicles actually had some kind of issue, whether it's updating their numbers, whether it's following up on a query, or even never knowing about things like AODs and how to make payment arrangements because they have a big outstanding debt that they cannot pay. That was voluntary. So I'm not too sure when they say we are breaking the law, how we're breaking the law. We stuck within the confines of the law, and that's why we invited institutions like the Joburg Ombudsman, our legal department, to make sure separate operations. We didn't even sit in the JMPD van. We didn't sit in their gazebos. We had our own separate operation at that particular pilot project.
Tebogo
But can I please?
Yes, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, because I saw the story before of what's happening in Cape Town and the illegal connections there. We've got a similar issue in the city of Johannesburg. And you can see in Cape Town that by law enforcement, even through their Metro Police Department, is taking place. We are doing the same thing in the city of Johannesburg. And we do this because metros are under pressure. A lot of people are coming into metros, and we need to then give services, bulk services to our people who are coming in. And we cannot do that if there's illegal connections, if we are not collecting money, and if there's not enough cash surpluses for us to reinvest in that infrastructure. So what Cape Town is doing is proper. The city of Johannesburg is doing the same thing. We are capacitating JMPD to go with us and go into these illegal connections, go into these instances where people are reconnecting back into our network after we disconnect them. That is lawlessness. And I just wanted to add that as a final point.